Here's why everybody's moving to Johns Creek, Georgia. One of the biggest reasons why so many people are moving here is because of how beautiful Johns Creek is. This is one of the best looking cities in all of Metro Atlanta, and it used to be part of Alpharetta, which is another really beautiful area. You can really tell when you're in this suburb that clearly there are some taxpayers who are paying lots of money for the city to do a great job of taking care of the area. And this is right off the bat one of the things that you notice right away when you are just driving through Johns Creek. It's one of the best kept, well-maintained cities in around all of Metro Atlanta. So this is one of the biggest reasons why so many people are attracted to Johns Creek. In addition to that, it's also very close to a lot of great amenities like downtown Alpharetta, the Avalon, also the Halcyon, which is just north of Johns Creek. So being able to be so close to all of these things is a big draw for many of the people who live here in this city. Another thing about Johns Creek that really brings a lot of people to this city is that the homes here are a bit newer than some of the other homes in other suburbs. For example, in East Cobb, it's very common to see homes built in the 70s and 80s. Same in Duluth or in Swanee. You see a lot of homes built around that same time frame, 70s and 80s. But Johns Creek, being a relatively new city and experiencing that boom in population a bit more recent than like East Cobb, there is more not new construction homes, but just the homes are a bit newer in Johns Creek. So it's more common to see homes built in like the early 2000s in Johns Creek. Now, there is a bit of new construction, that is homes that were built within the last few years, but there's also, in general, most of the homes tend to be newer in Johns Creek than some of the other suburbs that are around Johns Creek. So this is a really big reason why many people want to buy a home here. Of course, if you're thinking about moving to Johns Creek or you just want to know what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out asking me about living in Johns Creek or any of the other Metro Atlanta suburbs. I'm always happy to help with your moving needs. But another reason why so many people move here to Johns Creek is that the public school system in this city is one of the best in all of Metro Atlanta. According to greatschools.org, Johns Creek High School is a 9 out of 10 and Chattahoochee High School is a 10 out of 10. So right away we can see that there are some really great public schools here in this city. There are some newer homes here and the city is well kept, and these alone are some big reasons why so many people are wanting to move here. Another big one for many people is the racial diversity that you can find in Johns Creek. Now, I recently made another video talking about racial diversity here, and some people in the comments kind of disagreed with me a little bit, which is fair. I totally understand why you might disagree, but according to census.gov, Johns Creek is made up of 52% white population, 27% Asian population, 11% Black or African American, and 6% Latin American or Hispanic. So on paper, in my opinion, this does not seem very racially diverse, but you have to really think about racial diversity in Johns Creek and any of the other Metro Atlanta suburbs as something that's relative. For example, I grew up in Miami where the racial diversity is far more than Johns Creek. So when I go to Johns Creek, it feels to me like a city that is not quite as racially diverse as what I'm used to, especially when you compare it to the city of Atlanta, which is far more racially diverse than Johns Creek. When you look at it that way, Johns Creek is not a very racially diverse city. But if you come from an area of the country where there is predominantly one race or one culture, then you would naturally feel like Johns Creek is a more racially diverse suburb. It really all depends on what you're used to, what your perspective is of racial diversity. And so this is certainly something that you want to think about if finding that kind of diversity is important to you in a metro Atlanta suburb. Another big one for a lot of people and why they move here to this city is that there are far more jobs in Johns Creek and right around the immediate area of Johns Creek than there are in some of the other suburbs of metro Atlanta. Because Johns Creek is in Fulton County, which is like the main county, so to speak, of metro Atlanta, because Atlanta is also in Fulton County. So that really gives you a good idea of the relation from Johns Creek to Atlanta. They are relatively close. In fact, they're in the same county. And all of this means that there are lots of job opportunities in Johns Creek and around Johns Creek, like in Alpharetta or in Roswell or Sandy Springs. It's very easy to find work close to Johns Creek. You don't have to commute all the way to Atlanta if you live here in this city. So that's a really big plus, especially when you're trying to avoid this terrible rush hour traffic that we have here in metro Atlanta. Another big reason why so many people are moving here is the amount of parks and green space that you can find in Johns Creek. Newtown Park off of Old Alabama Road, Colley Creek Park off of Bell Road, and I think the pronunciation is OC Park. It's off of Buse Road. These are just some of the parks that you can find here in Johns Creek, and there is really a lot of parks in many of the suburbs of metro Atlanta, but Johns Creek is no different. There are plenty of green space and there's plenty of hiking trails here in this city. So certainly this is something that brings a lot of people to this area. Also, there are plenty of golf courses in this city. So certainly something to think about. And then another reason why Johns Creek is so popular is that there is a lot of pride in the residents who live in this city. Lots of community events, lots of neighborly people who are very friendly with each other. It's definitely the kind of suburb where you can experience that Southern hospitality. People here are very friendly, very welcoming, and so certainly a great sense of community in this city. Now, there are some downsides to living in Johns Creek, and I have to tell you, some of these things are, in my opinion, reasons why I would never move to Johns Creek. Certainly some things to think about if you're wanting to move here. Now, these red flags about living in Johns Creek are pretty significant, and you certainly need to know about them if you plan on moving here. To catch a full list of the pros and the cons of living in Johns Creek, check out this video. I'll see you there.